So today we are going to be talking about self-awareness as a superpower, which is part of our masterclass series this year, really on self-leadership and diving into all of the things relevant to you. So if you do not have a piece of paper or like a remarkable tablet or a phone or something that you can take notes on today, we are going to do a couple of self-assessments so we can figure out where we're at currently, so you can figure out what you want to change, if anything, and how to move forward and progress in a natural way. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my sound, and we are going to get right to it today. And of course, my computer is going to be wonky. Not take the first class, that's okay. We're going to continue to just keep building class after class, as well as you get homework, because this is all about self-work and self-awareness. So with that, go ahead and get started. So today we're talking about self-awareness as a superpower. And I want to caveat this to you guys. The more that we dive into emotional intelligence, the more we dive into self-leadership, you can't unknow what you end up learning. So a lot of the things that you're going to learn about yourself are also things that you're going to see in other people. So if you start to feel energetic shifts with different people, you're pulled towards different groups, know that that is completely natural. And that's what happens when you start to get to know yourself and start to kind of peel away those onion layers. This is a natural progress. It can be uncomfortable, but know that it ends up serving your absolute best self along the way. My name is Dr. Claire Muselman. I like to study human behavior. I'm a professor at Drake University, which is where I'm actually seated right now as we are hitting finals week right now. But my mission in life, I like to educate other people on the great stuff that I've either researched, applied to my own life, taught, you name it. I like to be able to give this information back to you so you can be living your very best life as well. So that's kind of where this whole concept came from for this masterclass series. So with that today, self-awareness. So again, once you know, you can't unknow. So I just want to preface that again. It might shift some of your relationships, your friendships, boundaries that you're going to set with your family, you name it. Like once you start to really dig into this stuff, the whole idea is that you're putting on your oxygen mask first. But if you're not sure where you're starting from, this is where we're going to try and get to. Like, how do you actually talk to yourself? What does this look like? And the more that you can know about yourself, the better that you're going to be for others, to serve others, to be part of teams, to be members of organizations, to really be in those leadership roles, as well as how do you serve your community, philanthropic events, you name it. So we're going to deep dive into your own reflections and then figure out what to do with this. So got a question for you to ponder. So I want you to think about, when do you feel most alive? What is that? What does that look like for you? And so take a couple of moments here where I feel the most alive when. And this might not be something that you can answer right away. You're like, I don't know, I need to think about that. Or I'm literally working today, Claire. You're asking me to stop and think about this. But when is that? When is that vibrancy where you just feel like you're in the most flow, or you're the happiest, or you feel the most joy? Maybe it's a season, maybe it's a specific activity. What does that look like for you? And do you make time for that? Do you make time for that thing, the place? What does that look like in your life? Give you guys a couple of minutes to think on that. When do you feel most alive? And if you want, I would love for you to privately share these with me. You do not have to share it with the group. You can share it with me individually. If you want to put it out to the group, what does that look like for you? All right. Good. Keep pondering that. Usually when I'm doing this with other groups, I give about 5 minutes on this question. But I've got a lot of stuff I want to cover today so that we can keep going through our masterclass series, because this is a big one. This is a really big, awesome, it's an awesome topic, and there's so much stuff to cover. It's going to be fantastic. So let's talk about what the point is of today. So it's time to recognize that we create our own unique physiological worlds by choosing what to think about and how we think about it, and that our psychological worlds shape our behaviors. So we talked about this in our last masterclass series about how the brain is designed. And we have different sections of our brain that are the thinking brain and the feeling brain, and how that actually shapes our behaviors. But in basic layman terms, what am I talking about? Basically, you have the power to choose what your life is like. It's really that simple. And a lot of people are going to tell me, well, there's there's circumstances. You've got two choices when you're coming out of this masterclass. I'm going to be very blunt about this. You can either choose to be the protagonist of your own life, or you can become a victim of circumstance. And we're going to talk through like, where are you right now? And where do you want to get to be living your very best life? So this is the recognition point. Like, what makes you feel truly alive? I'm asking you this because we're going to find ways to incorporate that more in your life. And this is where we create this for ourselves. So if you expect the worst, you're going to get the worst. If you expect every day is going to be awesome and the best, your life is going to drastically shift. But you have to start by becoming aware of where you're currently at and figuring out where you want to go. So today, these are the things that we are going to talk about and I am going to teach you about. So we're going to learn how to employ the concept of self-talk. How you talk to yourself matters. I've actually had an article about this posted in Bloom. It's the self-talk series. Like, how do you actually boost your own confidence? And there's a plethora of ways that we go through that. I'm not going to cover that in today's segment, but definitely go check that out on Bloom. It's little ways to enhance your neural pathways in your brain to make sure that you are cognitively training your brain to do better things, think more positively, etc. So we're going to employ this concept of self-talk to not only identify when we do it, but also how do we replace negative internal dialogues. Then I'm going to explain the importance of beliefs relative to behaviors. We're going to apply some mental strategy by challenging and replacing our irrational and dysfunctional beliefs. I know it's crazy. We might have some irrational beliefs in life, haha. But there's some ones that we're going to try and figure out how do we replace these with more positive cues and whatnot. Then we're going to talk about the difference between opportunity thinking and obstacle thinking, kind of that growth mindset, fixed mindset, and just a slightly different lens. And then we're going to apply self-leadership strategies. If you cannot lead yourself, you are not going to be effective in managing your own life, which then impacts the ripple effect of everybody else along the way. So we're going to apply these self-leadership strategies. We're going to talk about positive self-talk, challenging your beliefs and assumptions, and then creating a mental practice that can help you foster habitually opportunistic thinking. So I'm going to give you all the tools. It's up to you if you want to start using them. Not every tool is going to work for you, and I'm completely understanding of that. But what my goal is to give you every opportunity possible for you to take something away and be like, yes, this works for me. I'm going to work with this. Or no, this isn't really my jam. I don't like this. I'm not comfortable with this. This doesn't feel good in my world. I don't have enough time for it. Take what you want, leave what you don't, because it's going to be the things that you can actually make a habit and incorporate in your life on a regular basis that are going to make the biggest difference for you. All right. First, questionnaires. You're going to have 2 questionnaires because I got to figure out where you guys are at. And I do expect you to be honest with yourself. If you cannot be honest with yourself, this is a big starting point. So we're going to look at constructive thought-focused strategies to get you to a baseline to see where you currently are at with how you speak to yourself and how you tend to focus. Where does your mind instantly go? So when I'm going to ask you these questions, I need you to give a first answer response. So you just go with your gut, start with that, and then we will talk about what this means. So we're going to talk about dealing with unattractive but necessary tasks, because we all know that we have lots of those in life. There are going to be 9 statements. So if you have a piece of paper out, number it 1 through 9. If you've got your phone out, make sure you've got enough space to do 1 through 9. It's a 5-point scale. I personally hate 5-point scales because I don't want you to give me a 3. It is not going to be beneficial. You got to figure out which side of the fence you're on. I think we should technically make it a 4, but it'll screw up the point system. So figure out if it's a yes or a no, basically, and then how much of a yes or a no. That midpoint, it just is not going to help you as much as you think it will. It means meh, and we don't want meh. We want to make sure that we're making concrete observations to give you some type of objectivity to start from. So, first statement, I think about my own beliefs and assumptions whenever I encounter a difficult situation. How much is this? So we've got a 5-point scale. Just want to remind you of this. 1, it does not describe me well at all. 5, it describes me very well. I think about my own beliefs and assumptions whenever I encounter a different situation. 1 through 5. 5 being the highest, 1 being the lowest. Next question. Sometimes I find I'm talking to myself out loud or in my head to help myself deal with difficult problems I face. Does this sound like you? Very much like you? If it's very much like you, you're a 5. If this does not describe you well at all, you're a 1. And there's that range in between. Sometimes I find I'm talking to myself out loud or in my head to help myself deal with difficult problems I face. Next question or next statement. I visualize myself successfully performing a task before I do it. Does this sound like you? Does this sound very much like you? Can you give yourself a 5 if it does sound like you, a 1 if it does not, and the range in between? I visualize myself successfully performing a task before I do it. Next statement, number 4. I try to mentally evaluate the accuracy of my own beliefs about situations I am having problems with. Does that sound like you? Do you mentally evaluate those problems? 5, very much like you, ranging down to 1, not at all like you. I try to mentally evaluate the accuracy of my own beliefs about situations I am having problems with. Next statement. Sometimes I talk to myself out loud or in my head to work through difficult situations. Does this sound like you? 5, if it's very much like you. 4, if it's kind of like you. We're going to try and avoid 3. 2, if it's meh, sometimes, maybe. Or 1, no, never. Sometimes I talk to myself out loud or in my head to work through difficult situations. Next statement. Oops. Yeah, sorry. Let me go back one. Ah, I cannot see that very well. Sometimes I picture in my mind a successful performance before I actually do a task. Does this sound like you or not? 5 if it does, ranging down to 1 if it does not. Sometimes I picture in my mind a successful performance before I actually do a task. All right, 3 statements to go. I openly articulate and evaluate my own assumptions when I have a disagreement with someone else. Does that sound like you? Give it a 5. Kind of like you. A 4. 3, meh. 2, not really. 1, never. I openly articulate and evaluate my own assumptions when I have a disagreement with someone else. Number 8. When I am in a difficult situation, I will sometimes talk to myself out loud or in my head to help myself get through it. 5, if that sounds very much like you, all the way down to 1, if that does not sound like you. When I'm in a difficult situation, I will sometimes talk to myself out loud or in my head to help myself get through it. Last one, number 9. I often mentally rehearse the way I plan to deal with a challenge before I actually face the challenge. 5, that sounds like you, all the way down to 1, not at all. I often mentally rehearse the way I plan to deal with a challenge before I actually face the challenge. All right. So here's what I need you to do. You've got 1 through 9 now. I want you to add up the scores for question number or statement number 1 statement number 4, and statement number 7. This is going to give you a score for evaluating beliefs and assumptions. Once you have done that, we're going to take the answers or the point totals from statements numbers 2, 5, and 8 to figure out your score for self-talk. And then we'll add up mental practice, which is the total from your statements of the scores for 3, 6, and 9. And lastly, what's your total score? And if you want to throw these in the chat, you can do it privately. If you want to do it publicly, that's up to you. But let's see where we're starting from, and more so just so I know where to go and see where you guys are at, because this is all about you. So again, adding up 1, 4, 7, add up 2, 5, 8, add up 3, 6, 9, and then add up your total score. I'll make sure I give you guys enough time too. I see them start coming in. Good. Okay, so let's figure out what some of these scores mean. Here we go. So per strategy, so this is where we're going to look at what is your strategy regarding evaluating beliefs and assumptions? How good are you at self-talk and mental practice? So as we look at this, depending on your individual score, so again, as you look at these, so beliefs and assumptions, self-talk, and mental practice. Depending on where you scored, this is where you're assessing at. You're either very low at this, or you are very high. And then there's the range in between. So if you scored a 3 to a 4, it's very low use for you, or it's not something that you're very strong in yet. Or there's low, then there's moderate, then there's high, and then there's very high. And even if you're high or very high, it doesn't mean you can't learn anything from this. So things to think about. So that's what that looks like when we start looking at these from a strategy standpoint. And again, I want to reiterate these. This is where the strategies we're talking about are evaluating beliefs and assumptions, evaluating your self-talk, and evaluating your mental practice. And we'll talk about the total score here. So the overall use of these self-leadership strategies, how well are you at using this component of these 3? Your scores will dictate that as follows. Very low if you score a 9 to 16, low if it's a 17 to 24, meh if we're 25 to 31, then we start moving, high 32 to 39, and very high 40 to 45. So this is just a gut check for you to figure out where you are currently starting from. And again, some things are going to work great for you. You're going to love this. Some things you're going to say, no, I don't really want to do that. And that's totally fine. So our physiological worlds and are dictated very heavily by our psychological worlds. What do those actually consist of? Does anyone have any ideas? What does this look like? When we say our psychological world, what does that look like? Any thoughts, any ideas? Or what does yours personally? How nice is that headspace that you exist in the morning? What's that look like? All right, Leslie, thank you. This is what we think and what others think of us. Let's start with that. Let's keep going. All right. So when we talk about our psychological worlds, this is like the headspace that you live in. So what are your thoughts? What are your feelings? What goes on in your world? Now, it's influenced by a lot of external factors, but our psychological worlds consist of how we see ourselves and what we are cognitively thinking on a regular basis. So when we look at that, I'm going to ask you guys this. Do you truly believe that there is power in positive thinking? Any power in positive thinking? All right, getting some answers, getting some yeses, have a no. That's okay. And whatever you believe, it's totally fine. All right, so let's talk about this a little bit more. So when we talk about self-talk, this is how we talk to ourselves. When we talk about words mattering and the power that we have behind words, this all starts with how we talk to ourselves. So how do you start your day? What do you think, say? What do you see when you're looking at the mirror? All right. So when we talk about how do you start your day, anyone want to tell me what their first thoughts are in the morning? Anyone know? Have we ever even paid attention to this? Is this something that we've ever fathomed or considered before? So I can tell you that, and I've talked about this before in different classes, so humor me on this, but when my alarm goes off, it has a statement. So this morning, it was 6:45, and my statement says, "You can do this." And it has some glitter, a couple hearts, and a star. So the very first thing that I saw this morning was, "You can do this." And I'm instantly set in a different tone in my mind because my mind is now having a positive ripple effect as a result of, "You can do this today." So if you have alarms and they still say alarm, I'm going to ask you to please change that. There are other types of strategies that work, like before your feet touch the ground, can you think of 3 things that you're thankful for or grateful for? But what does your morning routine look like? And I'm not saying your morning routine by the time that you're making tea or you're getting ready, but your feet haven't hit the ground yet. You've opened your eyes and you are alive for another beautiful day. What do you do with that? What comes next? What are those first few thoughts? Now, I will tell you that sometimes it's not always the easiest thing in the world, but like earlier this week, my alarm went off and I said out loud, it's like, that is aggressive because it is an interesting, if you don't have music playing, or maybe you've got the crescendo-y music to wake you up, or you just have that, but this is where we start looking at, like, do you start your day out of gratitude, thankfulness? What does that look like for you? And how does that end up shaping the ripple effect of your day? So this is the first thought that you have of the day. This sets the tone for what you are going to show up as for yourself. Now, some of us are going to meditate. Some of us are going to go into prayer. Some of us are going to go into a gratitude type journaling or whatnot. But for the most part, this is how you are showing up to the world in yourself. And so if you have been maybe in a funk, not feeling super great, whatever that looks like, this is an area of opportunity to start shifting that. And start by being conscious of what is your first thought in the day? What are those first few thoughts that come into play? And this is where keeping a journal can be really helpful near your bed. And just write it down and be aware more than anything. What are those first few thoughts coming? Do this for about a week and then start seeing if there's any type of patterning. Is it a negative mindset? Is it positive? Is it neutrality? What does this look at? What does this do? What does this end up saying for you? Okay, just got a question from Vicky. She says, how are you having this pop up as your alarm? I have an iPhone. And so when you go into alarms, mostly it will say like the time and it'll say alarm. If you click into that, there should be a couple of screens or a couple of options on your screens. It will say repeat, label, sound, and then your option to snooze, which some of us snooze, some of us don't. Under label is where you can change that. And you can change that verbiage from saying alarm to saying, like the one I just clicked on says, you're having a beautiful morning. If you want to really amp this up, you can have these go off at different times of the day, set different music to them, and they'll pop up on your phone and you can look over and it might say like 3 good things. And you can think of 3 quick things. Okay, awesome. Glad you found that. So things to think about. So then we look at what happens when you end up going to your mirror. What do you say to yourself? What are you saying to yourself when you're brushing your teeth, when you're getting ready in the morning? Do you look yourself in your eyes? Do you actually look back at that person? And what are you saying? And today we're looking at this from more of an awareness standpoint. And I want you guys to cultivate awareness. We've got another masterclass next week. So this is your homework. You get a week for this. I want you to pay attention to those first few thoughts that you have in the morning. And I want you to think about what you say to yourself when you're looking in the mirror. So when we think about the example that I'm giving you, there's the little engine that could continued to tell himself, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. And guess what? He got where he was going. Now, children's story, but this stuff matters because the more that you talk to yourself in your head, you are the very first person that you should ever be listening to begin with. We follow our intuition, we follow what we think, And this is the voice that we hear constantly throughout the day, throughout all day, 7 days a week, 12 months a year, and for how many years? You got to start thinking about that. And your headspace is the place that we live 24 hours a day. So what does that look like for you? Is it a great space? Like, do you like being in your head? Are you a good friend to yourself? What does that look like? A lot of times we are much harsher with ourselves than we would ever be with our friends. And so we have to take this into account. What do you hear yourself say? Like if you mess up on a project, what do you hear yourself say? Are you upset or do you find a solution? What do you hear your friends say? And this is important when we think about how, well, I would never say that to a friend, but you have no problem saying it to yourself. So this is where I just want you to start cultivating awareness around self-talk. And then we think about this because there's so much messaging that gets pumped into us from different mediums and platforms, whether you're listening to music, watching TV, having TV on in the background, Instagram, TikTok, you name it. There's a lot of stuff that goes into play here that ends up shooting us messaging that does influence how we see ourselves and what we say to ourselves. So what I'm asking you to do is to just take some awareness, some self-awareness, a check-in here of what does that look like in your world. And if for any reason you feel that there is something that you don't just love, then we're going to take that and we're going to try and manipulate it so that it is better and more beneficial to you. As we continue on here. So let's discover some negative self-talk. All right, I'm going to ask you some questions and I want you guys to let this flow. I am going to I was going to give you a minute. I might give you guys about 30 seconds. We can always send you this as a PDF if you want to dig deeper. But I want you guys to think this. This is going to be a first. All right, I'm going to say something to you. Just let it out. And this should be from a writing standpoint. There is no wrong answers to anything that I'm going to ask you. This is for you to be honest with yourself. And remember that this is all about a baseline today of trying to cultivate some self-awareness so that we can figure out what you want to do. Okay, question 1, 30 seconds. List a project or an activity that you have begun or considered beginning. What did you tell yourself as you started or failed to start it? And if you failed to start it, do you have any idea why you have not been working towards it? All right, just let it flow on that paper. You've got 30 seconds. List a project or an activity that you have begun or considered beginning. What did you tell yourself as you started or failed to start it? All right, moving on. Question number 2. And again, we can make sure you guys get these sent out if you want to spend further time on these. Question number 2. Think of a time when you were feeling lonely. What did you tell yourself during this time? Got 30 seconds. Just the reason I ask you guys to let this just flow too is the brain, when you are writing, you don't necessarily cognitively process everything that you're going to write out. The brain will access a different area of the brain to just let stuff flow. So that is why this ends up being important of just write it out and let it flow. So you can see what actually pops up for you. So with this, think of a time when you were feeling lonely. What would you tell yourself at this time? All right, let's move on. Question number 3. Think of a day when you were feeling stressed and overwhelmed at work or with school. What were you telling yourself during this chaotic time? Let it go. 30 seconds. Think of a day when you were feeling stressed and overwhelmed at work or with school. What did you tell yourself during this chaotic time? All right, moving to question number 4. Think of a criticism you recently faced from a coworker, a student, a boss, teacher, a professor, maybe a family member, super close friend. What were you telling yourself at this time and after the criticism? 30 seconds. Think of a criticism you recently faced from a coworker, fellow student, boss, teacher, professor, family member, friend. What were you telling yourself at this time and after the criticism? Next question. Think of a recent compliment that you received from a coworker, a boss, teacher, professor, student, peer, family member, friend. What were you saying to yourself at this time and after the compliment? You have 30 seconds. Think of a recent compliment that you received. What were you saying to yourself at this time and after the compliment? Next question. Think of a day you were feeling negative about yourself. What were you saying to yourself at this time? Got 30 seconds. Think of a day when you were feeling negative about yourself. What were you saying to yourself at this time? All right. Next question. Think of a day when you were experiencing some symptoms of illness, such as a headache or achy bones. What were you telling yourself during the time when you were experiencing these symptoms? 30 seconds. Think of a day when you were experiencing some symptoms of illness, such as a headache or achy bones. What were you telling yourself during the time when you were experiencing these symptoms? All right. Those are for you. If you would like to share those with me, I'm happy to listen, happy to hear. You can put them in the chat. Otherwise, keep those for you. All right. So we're going to look at, I want you to see if there's any thought patterns that come out of those. And again, you can easily get a copy of this. I just want to make sure that you guys have a good frame of reference. So we ask some of these difficult questions to look at our thought patterns because our life is what our thoughts make it. So thinking about that, like, all right, so when things aren't going well, what are you saying to yourself? When things are going well, what do you say to yourself? Things to think about. So as we move on, we want to look at what our thought patterns tell us. So I'm going to give you guys an example here. This is from Jocko. This is a little bit more intense type of method for how people see things. And if you discover that you are not a positive self-talker and you are a negative self-talker, know that that's okay. It's okay. Like we are here today to figure out what we do. And then if you want to change it, you're not happy with where you're at, or let's say you are a positive self-talker, but you know that there are areas that you could benefit from, just know that that's okay. We are all just trying to establish a baseline today. So when we talk about thought patterns, this is an interesting dynamic. So again, this is from Jocko. He has a podcast. This is very military based. And I was having a tough day a couple years ago, and I had a friend send me this. And so I've loved it ever since. And it gives a different perspective on things. So I'm going to play this for you. It's about 90 seconds. So an interesting, a little bit more,
a
little bit heavier, but also a really good reminder when things don't go the way that you planned. Okay, there's going to be some good that comes out of it. And there's going to be shifts that happen. All right. So he says, we didn't get the funding, didn't get that didn't get the mission that we wanted. Great. It's an opportunity for us to get better. And we tend to get into, this is where I said you get to choose your options here. You get to be a victim of your own circumstances, or you get to be the protagonist to your life. And so when we start looking at this from these perspectives, I want you to really think about that. Like, what does that look like for you? And how can you shift that? And the concept of resilience is interesting, and we'll touch base on that in a couple of these classes coming forward. But it's not about bouncing back, it's about bouncing forward and going into a different modality than we had been previously, because all of this is teaching us something. And if we weren't here right now with the experiences that we had up until this point, we wouldn't be prepared for what's coming next. And so when we think about this is where we start looking at our thought patterns. And now we're going to look at, are we opportunity thinkers or are we obstacle thinkers? So this is another assessment that we're going to look at. Do we have a plethora of opportunity coming our way, or are these all obstacles? So one last assessment for today. Again, today is very baseline oriented. I want you guys to figure out where you're starting at so that we can effectively, incrementally get better and find ways that you can start making habits in your life that are going to shape you to be better than you were yesterday and not even as good as you're going to be tomorrow. So with this, all right, pull your paper out if you haven't put it away yet. One more set of questions to go through, and then I definitely want to leave some time for questions today. Okay, so we're going to assess, are you an opportunity thinker or are you an obstacle thinker? Very similarly to, are you more growth mindset or are you a more fixed mindset? Now, we'll get into the why behind all of this too, but right now we're just going to take an assessment to figure out where are you starting from. All right, here we go. A or B, instant A or B, write it down, and we're moving forward. A real opportunity is built into every problem. Or B, anything that can go wrong will. Pick one, A or B. A real opportunity is built into every problem. Or B, anything that can go wrong will. So put down a 1 and then put it A or B. That's it, because we will do scores here in a few minutes. So just letter A, letter B next to your number 1. Number 2, a bird in the hands is worth 2 in a bush. Or real opportunities are worth sticking your neck out for. Quick, A or B? Question number 2. A bird in the hand is worth 2 in a bush. Or B, real opportunities are worth sticking your neck out for. Number 2, and then put your letter, A or B. 3, most people cannot be counted on. Instant reaction to this. Or B, every person is a valuable resource in some way. I don't care about the situation, just go with your gut instinct. A or B. Most people cannot be counted on, or every person is a valuable resource in some way. Number 4, A, difficulties make us grow. Or B, difficulties beat us down. Gut instinct, A or B. A, difficulties make us grow. Or B, difficulties beat us down. First reaction. Number 5, A, the world is full of impossibilities. B, nothing is impossible that we cannot conceive of. Real quick, A or B? Number 5, and then A, the world is full of impossibilities, or B, nothing is impossible that we can conceive of. Number 6, when half of the days in an enjoyable vacation have passed, I still have half my vacation to enjoy. Or do you think, when half of the days of an enjoyable vacation have passed, my vacation is half over? Interesting thought process. So think back to your last vacation. If you were there for 3 days, 5 days, what did you think when you're about halfway through? Oh my gosh, it's almost over. Or I still have half to enjoy. So A or B? Question 6. Write that down. All right, number 7. A, the best approach to dealing with energy shortages is conservation. B, the best approach to dealing with energy shortages is to develop new energy sources. So number 7, write down A or B. The best approach to dealing with energy shortages is conservation. Or B, the best approach to dealing with energy shortages is to develop new energy sources. Question 8. A, life after death. B, death after life. What do you think? What's your gut? Where do you flip to? A or B? Question 8. A, life after death. B, death after life. Which one are you more drawn to? Go ahead and select that. 9. A, failure is an opportunity to learn. B, failure is a negative outcome to effort. Which one do you more identify with? A, failure is an opportunity to learn, or B, failure is a negative outcome to effort. Go ahead and pick A or B. And last, number 10. A, happiness is the absence of problems. Or B, problems are the spice of life. Go ahead and pick A or B. Which one are you drawn to instantly? A, happiness is the absence of problems. Or B, problems are the spice of life. Okay, so now you should have 10. Let's add them up. All right. So you have your 10 questions. You have listed A or B. Add up your points. They are going to be different per question. So I'm going to leave this up for a second for you to look at. And then we're going to add up opportunity on that one side and B, or the obstacle side. And I want you to get your point totals. And then in the chat, privately to me, I want you to send me which column was higher for you. Just privately to me, send me which column total is higher for you. Give everybody about 30 more seconds. That's good. Thank you guys for sharing. I know we're getting pretty vulnerable today, but this stuff's important to establish a baseline so you can figure out where you want to go. Where you stand says a lot about what you see. And so we need to take a deep look into that. All right, where are we at? And this will become your superpower to figure out where you want to go. And next week we talk about, all right, so we figured this all out. Now what do we do with it? This is where we start looking into that mirror approach. All right. Go ahead and keep sharing those as you are totaling them up. And let's talk about this. Okay, it's time to dig deeper. So I want you to think about one of the greatest lessons that you have learned in life thus far from a professional setting. Sometimes these can be pretty big gut punches. Sometimes they can be friendship failures. They can be, I don't know, anything that maybe you thought you were acting in some way and somebody gave you some feedback that crushed you. What does this look like? And then I want you to think about the greatest lesson that you've learned thus far from a personal standpoint. Maybe you had, like I can say, I've had a failed marriage. So what does that look like for me? What did I learn from this? So I want you to think about these from a professional setting and a personal standpoint while we start going in through this next segment. Okay, so when we look at failure, so failure ends up being where we look at this opportunity thinking or this obstacle thinking pretty heavily. But only he who does nothing makes no mistakes. So I want you guys to just think about this, especially as we look back on what is your greatest lesson thus far from a professional setting? And what does that look like from a personal setting? So let's talk about failure. So when we define failure, this is where a lot of our negative self-talk comes to play. Like, I didn't get that job. So where Jocko says, good, it's an opportunity for you to get better. A lot of times we end up self-sabotaging ourselves really hard into this, comparing ourselves to other people, contrasting experiences that we've had versus other people have had. When really, the only person that you are ever competing with is yourself and who you were yesterday. So when we look at failure, I want you guys to start thinking about it as a first attempt in learning. And then when we look at things from a resiliency standpoint, when you're trying to move forward again, we're not going to do it the way that we just did it because that didn't yield us a successful outcome. It was a first attempt in learning. So failure is more of an acronym than anything else. When we look at success versus failure, all right, why do you guys think this is such a dreaded word in the English language? Because it is. You ask anyone and we look at, all right, does this word seem to like give you energy? Does it not? It's one of the most dreaded words that we can possibly use is the term failure. But if we use the term success, people feel like it is a magical word. So I'm curious, what are your thoughts behind this? Why do you think we do that? And if you want to come off mute, please do. Why do we do that? Why is failure so hard for us to comprehend? And success ends up being magical. And I don't want to negate the fact that there are times where people are afraid of success. So there is that fear of success where people are more apt to fail because they're like, oh, well, it's safe. I know that I can still recover if I fail. I have no idea what I do if I succeed. Colleen, we have high expectations of ourselves. That's great. We expect and want to be perfect. We do. And so failure ends up having this like, ugh, instead of us looking at it as an opportunity or that first attempt in learning, we tend to go pretty hard on ourselves because we have high expectations for what we're going to accomplish and achieve. And the interesting thing is we tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in one day and underestimate what we can do in a lifetime. So things to think about as we're pondering a lot of these conversation starters today. Okay, so this is what I want you guys to think. Oh, this is good. This one's really good. Failure and success can be seen. So there's this fear of humiliation. Absolutely. Brene Brown talks about this in-depthly about shame and how you feel shame and failure can be assimilated with that. We've been embedded that failure is negative, it's bad, yet success is achieving what was attempted. That is fantastic. Thank you. I'm going to fail or make mistakes at work. I never expect the best outcome. Understandable. Thank you, Brandy. So good things that you guys are sharing. Thank you. So what we're going to come through next, now that we've started to assess, okay, where are we? All right. So we know how we talk to ourselves now. We know if we're an obstacle or an opportunity thinker, and maybe those numbers were closer than you would have liked them to be. But this is where we start taking that deep dive and getting aware of where we are at this present moment. Looking through those answers to those questions that I asked you guys, what did that look like for you? Are you okay with those? Are you happy with the way you've handled situations, or are there opportunities for you to grow? And there's always opportunities for you to grow. So I hope you continue to join me on this journey. But here's a new view for you guys to consider and some themes that I want you to consider. We are going to start looking at redefining what failure is. Again, Jocko says, it's an opportunity to get better. Good, you learned something. So I want to redefine what that looks like. And then also redefine what success looks like for you. So we're going to figure out what that looks like. How do you learn from failure? What does that actually look like for you? And then how do you make sure that you did take that lesson, you've been able to apply it so that you don't continue to repeat the same mistakes and go down that wheel of, oh my gosh, and here comes the insanity wheel. We've got to take the idea of using failures kind of as stepping stones to that next level of where we want to go and how we want to get there, what we want to achieve. And we find the opportunities that exist within failure in order to do so. Use negative feedback to your advantage. So here's what. If someone gives you some feedback and you instantly feel it, and you know what I'm talking about, when you can feel it in your body, it's almost like a punch to the kidney or like, oh my gosh. And you can feel it. It physiologically feels like it hurts. There's a reason that is resonating with you in that capacity. So the next time that happens to you, I want you to take note of it. write down whatever it was. And then you've got to actually dig in and be like, okay, why is this impacting me like this? Because when things happen to you from a physiological level, where it's okay, somebody's using words or you're reading text and it ends up like jabbing you, why? Because if there's no enemy within, the enemy outside can do no harm. It's an old African proverb. So there's something going on inside of you that either believes this or knows this to be true. So we want to take some awareness behind that. And then we're going to start looking at going beyond yourself and how we make a greater impact through the ripple and continuing on to persist. So with that, I do have some homework for you guys. And I want to leave a couple of minutes for questions, because as we start to dig into this stuff, I'm assuming that people are going to have some questions more than we've had in prior classes. So with that, your homework, I'm going to put this up because I would like you to do it. And again, we'll make sure we get this sent out so that you guys can. All right, your homework is to do a stress test. So as we are moving forward with this, we're getting self-aware. I need to know where your stress levels are too. Some of us are going to be working in a very high stress environment. Some of us are maybe much better at accessing our stress or figuring out how to combat it. But we need to figure out how to complete your stress cycles, and that's going to be different for everyone. So I need you to be able to figure out what that is for you. So this is the BeMindfulOnline.com Test Your Stress. And then I have a couple of reflection questions that I would like you guys to ponder. Now, we did some of those today, so I'm not going to give you any further ones, but answer those ones that we talked about today, even if you only had 30 seconds to generate a response. Go back and revisit those. The work that you're going to do outside of class on this is absolutely going to be the shape of how beneficial this course ends up being for you in whole. And so, you can look at your numbers today, you can see where you're at. And then we're going to just use this as a benchmark and a jumping point to start off as we launch into next week. All right, so we've got all this awareness now, Claire. What do you want us to do with it? And we will continue with that. So I will put this stress test in the chat, and I will make sure that we get a copy of these slides sent out to you guys so that we can keep on keeping on. So we will continue this next week, same time, same place. And this time we will take a mirror approach to, all right, we have all this information. What do you want us to do?